After years of looking, she thinks she's found Mr. Right.
Why would he do this? How could he possibly do this? They were so in love.
And then, a parent's nightmare comes true.
She hugged me goodbye, and she got in the car, and I said, "You're the only daughter I have."
I'm John Walsh, and this is In Pursuit. Tonight's first case takes a very hard look at a really selfish bastard, Lamont Stevenson. Now, no one is more vulnerable to a predator than someone who's looking for love. Evie DeJesus was a hard-working single mom living in Newark, New Jersey. Her one vision was to build the best life for her daughter, Cassandra, and she was doing it. But she never lost faith that she might still just find Mr. Right. Well, Mr. Right never walked into her life. Instead, Lamont Stevenson did.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew each other. My parents are originally from Puerto Rico. I'm the oldest of the siblings, followed by my brother Marco, my sister Evie. Her real name is Olga Yvette DeJesus. We call her Evie, short for Yvette. Evie had a big personality. She was always loud, she was always laughing.
I used to say spoiled because she was the only girl. Her mom loved her. Her dad did anything for her.
I first met Evie September of '89 in Bloomfield Tech. We met, we clicked. She didn't care about the type of guy that she dated. As long as they treated her fine, she didn't have a problem.
I wanted her to be able to meet that good guy. Not that they were bad, but when I didn't see that in the guy, I would be quick to tell her and let her know. But she didn't care what anybody else said, and she would just go with what she wanted to do, no matter what.
At the age of 22, she got pregnant with Cassandra.
All I know that when she had Cassandra, she changed a lot. Evie loved going out, and she loved music, but she wanted so much more for Cassandra. She filled the place of a mother and a father flawlessly. So growing up, being that it was just my mother and I, we were best friends, and it was like a dynamic duo in a sense. Like whatever she was doing, I would be there right with her. Cassandra was we called her our little partner in crime, because whenever Evie and I did anything, Cassandra was always with us. My mom had a lot of dreams that she shared with me, but she wasn't able to fulfill them. Sometimes your dreams are shot early.
The only dream Evie never gave up was finding a man with whom to share her life. But now any candidate had to impress Evie and Cassandra.
Cassandra was tough. Like if she didn't like someone, she would let her mom know right away. The people she was dating, I think sometimes they were a little intimidated about me. I'm fine with that, because I always wanted to protect her.
In 2013, after Evie's 20th high school reunion, a new suitor presented himself, a high school classmate named Lamont Stevenson.
Evie stated that Lamont reached out to her through Facebook Messenger. He liked her pictures from the reunion. And then they just started talking on the phone. They started dating. We all thought it was strange. Her type was just more of an outgoing person. Lamont was very quiet in high school for what I could remember.
The first time I actually met Lamont Stevenson, he came over to the house for dinner. I knew he worked at Pep Boys. He was very religious, but I didn't really know a lot about him. I personally thought Lamont was different from other men that my mother dated because he was eager to get to know me. And that was important to me because I'm important to my mother.
I found out about him on Facebook. And I remember reaching out to her and I'm like, who is this?
It was unusual when she started posting on Facebook. She was posting how she was happy, she got roses, she went out to dinner. She never had posted her relationship out there on Facebook.
The relationship between my mother and Lamont, it progressed fairly fast. I met him in like November, and by February of the year coming, he was already moving in. I never knew how it's like to live with another man in the house. You know, I didn't have a father growing up. I knew I was gonna leave off to college soon. I kind of just didn't really let it get to me because I knew eventually I wasn't gonna be there. And if this was what my mother needs for her relationship with him to grow, then I was up for it.
Once she had Cassandra's okay, Evie needed one more nod from her father.
When she said that she was bringing him around to meet her father, I was like, he's the one. You're really serious about him. And that was big because Evie would not bring anyone around her father.
Lamont was a very nice guy, very respectful. He seemed very religious. Everyone got a nice vibe from him. I didn't see anything wrong.
Evie was on cloud 9, but not everyone shared her enthusiasm.
It took a toll in our friendship. We were seeing each other less because she was doing more with him. Every time she wanted to go ahead and do something, it was, oh, Lamont's gonna be around, so we can't. And I'm like, well, what Lamont got to do with this? So if he was around, it wasn't gonna be us doing anything.
It was my mom's birthday. She was turning 40 and she was being a drama queen.
To grow up.
I did grow up, I'm 40.
We went to dinner. When we got back to the apartment, Lamont came out of the kitchen and popped the question with the ring.
What was that again? What? What'd you say?
And she went ahead and accepted.
The next day, my mother did ask me, how do you feel about it? I was like, well, I don't agree with it for the simple fact that I feel like it's rushed. But I told her ultimately, like, if she's happy, then I'm happy for her.
She would call me every day. She was trying to make some plans, picking colors out for this wedding. She was excited because this was her dream to one day get married.
I got a little concerned because I thought it was a little too fast. So I picked up the phone and called her. It was like, so you're engaged? I'm like, I haven't even met the guy yet.
He didn't talk about his family to us. Lamont never talked about his family to us.
But what was strange when it came to the list, how many people he was inviting, how many people she was inviting, her list was like 3 times bigger than his. I asked her why. Her answer was, well, he doesn't have friends and he doesn't keep in touch with his family. And I'm like, wait a minute, you don't know where he came from after 20 years.
If you've seen Lamont Stevenson, please make that call. Lamont Stevenson's proposal to Evie DeJesus caught everyone off guard, especially her daughter Cassandra.
My first reaction was like I cried. And I don't think it was tears of happiness, it was tears of more like, what is going on, you know? Yeah, I was happy my mom was happy, but I didn't expect for things to move that fast.
And I'm like, well, he's totally the opposite of you. When she reached out to me, I gave her my opinion as far as I don't think this is the right decision, but who am I? I'm her best friend.
But Evie pressed on with the wedding plans. Her life was changing. In the fulfillment of yet another dream, her daughter Cassandra was leaving for college.
When I went off to college, in the morning, I would wake up to a text message from my mother. At lunchtime, she would text me. She would call me around 5 o'clock, and then she would call me once more before she went to bed. My mother would tell me that she misses me and that the house is more quiet without me.
And with Cassandra gone, Evie's whole life was now about Lamont. It wasn't how she was used to living.
She would call me just to tell me that she wasn't used to this, she couldn't do it no more. And I'm like, but what is the problem? I'm not used to living with somebody else. You know, I have to do, you know, my things on my own.
The thing I sensed about him was he was a little too much around. He didn't give her space.
Maybe around September, she expressed to me that she started having like anxiety. She wanted to go out and have girl talk. And every day that I called her, you know, I would always tell her, okay, well then just let me know, when do you want to go out? October comes around. So again, every day was a different routine of, you want to go out, you want to, you know, have some girl time, and then you're giving me all these excuses. No, it's because every time I get home, he's home.
Evie began to suspect that Lamont was being less than truthful.
The second week of October, she reached out to me. She said, I need you to call Lamont's job because I have a feeling he's not at work. So I had my girlfriend from work call. So I called her back and I said, okay, well, they said he's not there. She got all hyper and I was trying to calm her down.
But when Evie confronted Lamont, he told her he was at a meeting. She told Arlene she decided to let it go.
I said, of course, and this is the reason why me and everybody else is just in shock that you decided to move so fast. This wedding doesn't have to come as soon as you want it to come.
On the 16th, Evie was having some kind of romantic night with Lamont. Everything looked normal to me on Facebook because she posts everything on Facebook.
I spoke to my mother on October 16th. After I got off the phone with her, she texted me and she was like, you know I love you, right? Talk to you tomorrow.
But that next morning, there was nothing from Evie.
By 8:30, 9 o'clock when she gets to work, she usually texts me. So I text her around 10. And I said, good morning, and she didn't reply.
More texts to Evie went unanswered. Cassandra called around to family and friends. No one had heard from Evie that morning. She called Lamont. He didn't answer.
Cassandra reached out to me and asked me, hey, you know, I haven't heard from my mom. Have you heard from her? My reply to her was, text her this morning. She hasn't got back to me. About like 3 o'clock, called Lamont's job. And the young lady that picked up the call says, oh no, he doesn't work here anymore. And I was like, that didn't sound right.
Cassandra and Arlene agreed to meet at Evie's apartment.
We pull up to my apartment complex. The first thing I did was I opened the mail slot and I kept calling my dog's name. Lola, Lola, I'm here. And I didn't get no response from her. I opened the door. I basically ran over to my dog, and I knew that she wasn't breathing. She was lying in her bed, and she was gone.
The whole apartment was still spotless clean. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary.
And my godmother told me to go upstairs. I don't want to go upstairs because if I go upstairs, I'm going to see something that I don't want to see.
Cassandra called the police. While she waited for them to arrive, she called her cousin Alex, a retired corrections officer who lived nearby, to help them look through the house.
Once her cousin came to the apartment, we explained to him what we didn't search, which was upstairs, the bedroom.
He's walking up the stairs. He's calling her name. He's saying, Evie, Evie, are you here? Are you here? He opened the door, and there was my mother laying in the bed.
Lamont Stevenson is wanted for murder. If you see them, do the right thing and make that call. On every episode of In Pursuit, we're going to tell you about some missing children that we need your help to find and bring home to their families. Here's the first case. Luis Martinez was allegedly abducted by his mother, Regina Martinez, in June 2015 when he was 3. Police believe that Regina picked up Luis from school during the day. When his father, his legal guardian, came to get him, Luis was gone. He was 3 feet 8 inches tall and weighed 48 pounds at the time of his disappearance. If you know anything at all about Luis's whereabouts, please call us. On October 17, 2014, 18-year-old Cassandra De Jesus was frantically trying to track down her mother, Evie. Cassandra drove to her mother's home in Newark. She and her cousin Alex discovered Evie in her bedroom.
I walked in the room and I saw my mother lying there. I screamed and dropped down to the floor, my knees, and I kind of lost it.
When I got there, my cousin Alex told me, your sister's gone. And I panicked and I started crying, very emotional with Cassandra.
I just went looking for Cassandra. And I was just worried about how she was doing, because the relationship that her and Evie had was her best friend. I'm sorry.
That evening, when everybody was at the scene and everybody was being questioned and Lamont was nowhere in sight.
One of the officers that were there was a friend of Evie's. So she was able to get a little bit more information. His things were gone. I knew that he was gone.
When I got to the scene and Lamont was not there, right away, I had to say to myself, it's Lamont. Lamont did this because he was with her all the time.
October 17, 2014, I received a call from the Newark Police Department about a suspicious death. The deceased had a boyfriend at the time and he was nowhere to be found. I walked into the apartment. I was met by my detectives. They told me that there was no signs of forced entry to the apartment. It didn't appear anything was out of place. There was no signs of a struggle whatsoever. So once the medical exam arrived, he did find some bruising around the neck area, and some particular hemorrhaging inside of the eyes, which is often associated with strangling or smothering. When we see homicide by strangulation, it's got to be something personal. It comes out of anger. Something must have set him off. He must have went in some type of rage. We don't know why. And the strangulation of the dog is It's like a slap in the face to the family.
My family and friends, they didn't want to believe it was him because for the simple fact that, like, why would he do this? How could he possibly do this? They were so in love.
We pinged his phone. He was in the area of Stephen Crane Village the night prior, October 16th, and also the early morning hours of October 17th. We then concentrated our efforts on surveillance video. We do have him leaving Stephen Crane Village early that morning and getting onto a light rail. He then took that light rail to Newark Penn Station. When we tracked Mr. Stevenson to Newark Penn Station, we do have him on video surveillance walking around the establishment for quite some time. There are numerous modes of transportation he could take, a bus, a train. We do have him boarding a bus later that morning to a destination unknown down south.
Witnesses have reported sightings of Lamont Stevenson, but none of the tips have led to anything solid. After exhausting the leads, the prosecutors turned to the FBI.
There were numerous leads leading to him being down south in the Carolinas or Virginia. Due to our abilities to go from state to state throughout the United States as well as international, the Essex County Prosecutor's Office requested our assistance in helping them with this case. He could be working in a mechanic shop. He could be working in another auto parts store as well.
In October 2018, the FBI turned up the heat on Lamont Stevenson and placed him on their top 10 most wanted list.
Extensive resources have been devoted to this, and so we're extremely hopeful that he will be apprehended.
It's still fresh in our mind. The waiting for answers is very, very hard.
It's been very difficult that he hasn't been found, that he hasn't come forward to take the responsibilities. And it's just been like living the whole story day after day after day.
And Cassandra is doing her best to honor her mother's memory.
What Cassandra went through for that girl to push. And she graduated college and is going back for her master's. Like, couldn't be happier. Couldn't be more proud of her.
I grew up on trying to fulfill my mother's dreams because of this tragedy. I didn't let it define me. I just used it as my biggest motivation in everything I do.
Now, Lamont Stevenson's also a con man. He presents himself as a deeply religious person, and he may have recently joined a church or a religious organization to find an accepting community. So if you've seen Lamont Stevenson, don't approach him, pick up the phone, make that call. I guarantee you can remain anonymous. Let's help bring Evie de Jesus some justice. Now it's time for one of the most powerful weapons in our arsenal, what I like to call 15 seconds of shame. Robert Brumfield III is wanted by the FBI and New Orleans PD for his alleged involvement in a December 2013 murder of Hector Trochez. Martin Jesus Godinez is wanted for allegedly murdering Katie Nossick in City of Industry, California on September 4th, 2017. If you've seen either of these suspects, please call us.
Do you know who has custody over it and who the officer was assigned?
Okay, around what time?
Now, our next case is a story of a heartbreaking loss. Angela Marr was a student of enormous promise and a very giving soul. She was ripped from her family in a moment of terrible heartlessness, and her killer, Gloria Schulz, is still free. My son Callahan investigates why it went down the way it did.
Miss Angela Marr.
Angela Marr was an all-around star student. Popular, smart, and always thinking of others. She never hesitated before jumping in to help those in need.
Everyone in Xavier cares what happens to everyone else.
It's an especially cruel irony that all of Angela's generosity was snatched away by a single person's recklessness. But that's what happened, one night in 1994. I'm here in Scottsdale, Arizona, to try to understand how Gloria Scholes got away with it.
I was in shock. I screamed outside. My neighbors heard me.
If you have any information about Gloria Scholes' whereabouts, please make that call.
Angela Marr grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona. Her mother, Rosemary Marr, still lives in the area. Can you tell me a little bit about Angela? From, as you know her, as your daughter growing up?
Oh, Angela was a delight. She'd walk in a room and it would light up. And she always saw the light things of everything. Our daughter was 5 when we moved to Scottsdale. We were always a close family. We talked to each other. We knew what everybody's day was like.
Rose made sure Angela and her brother Donald Jr. looked after one another.
There was about 4.5 years difference between Angela and Donald, but they were best friends. Schooling came easy to Angela. She always wanted to be in a position to do things.
Rose tells me that Angela was very civic-minded. When she was in high school, an incident involving a fellow student who had been driving while intoxicated shook her deeply and stirred her to action.
I didn't even know that she had started Students Against Drunk Driving at Xavier, but she was always the people person.
In her junior year, tragedy struck the family when her father suffered a heart attack.
It was Palm Sunday. He had a massive coronary on Sunday morning. My children were devastated when their father died. It was horrible.
But the family bravely pressed on. Don Jr. went back to college. Angela went on to her senior year in high school. At her cotillion, she was voted Miss Congeniality. And she was selected to give a speech at graduation.
It's up to each one of us to live life with passion.
I was proud of both of my children. Donald was going to be going to law school, and Angela was graduating, and she was going to go to diplomat school from Creighton.
In college, Angela flourished. And in July 1994, between her junior and senior year, she traveled home to Scottsdale so Rose wouldn't be alone on her birthday.
We went to dinner that night. We drove home, and she says, I have to go pick up a friend. She hugged me goodbye, and she got in the car, and I said, make sure you put your seatbelt on. Oh, Mom, why do you say that? It's because you're the only daughter I have.
Angela had borrowed her mother's white Oldsmobile. Her friends had been in downtown Scottsdale that night. Said, Angela, can you come pick us up? We've had something to drink. She was known as the go-to person if you needed a designated driver. Gloria Scholes was at a bar at Scottsdale and Shea called the Thunder and Lightning. She left there probably a little before 10 p.m.
Gloria was traveling northbound in her father's van, the maroon van. Angela was traveling southbound. Gloria's van drove left to center. And there was a head-on collision with Angela's vehicle. When the incident occurred, I was working that night. I remember hearing there was a serious injury collision. The conversation you hear over the radio lets you know that it's a serious thing. They use certain codes to say that a particular victim is not going to survive.
The Scottsdale Police Department came to my house. They told me that Angela had been killed. I was in shock. I screamed outside. My neighbors heard me. Angela enjoyed everything she did. She loved life. She really did. It was a loss, great loss.
Police spent the next days interviewing witnesses and trying to piece together what happened that night. Detective Chris Humiston is taking me through the photos of the aftermath of the crash.
Here are photos of Angela's vehicle. Oh, this is Gloria's van.
This van looks like a heavy vehicle. The impact must have been very severe for it to land on its roof.
Absolutely. Yeah, so you can see how the main point of impact would have been right into the driver.
Angela didn't stand a chance. And while the van is flipped over and has some damage, Gloria only walked away with a broken jaw.
And some bruising, correct.
Gloria Scholes, the driver who killed Angela, walked out of the hospital after a couple of days. But who was she? And what was it that led her to cross Angela Lamar's path that night?
Gloria Schultz was a 31-year-old woman who was living in Scottsdale at the time. Her parents actually lived in California, but they owned a home in Scottsdale, and that's the home that Gloria was living out of.
She seemed to be living off her family because she wasn't working full-time here. She had credit cards that her parents had paid for. She wasn't married, she didn't have any children, she didn't have a boyfriend, she just did not have ties to this community, although had been here for some number of years.
Gloria Schultz was injured in the accident, so she was hospitalized. That night, she had watery, bloodshot eyes, extreme smell of liquor on her, and admitted to both the doctors and the police that she'd had 4 beers that night.
Schultz's blood alcohol level was 0.15, nearly twice today's legal limit. Tests at the hospital also found traces of marijuana in her system.
The irony was just too thick. A young 21-year-old girl who had started now the organization Students Against Drunk Driving at her high school, who is going to pick up somebody at a bar to be killed by a drunk driver within miles of her house. It was just awful.
Gloria wasn't arrested that night, and she wasn't arrested a month later when county prosecutors finally got around to bringing charges against her.
Gloria Schultz was charged with manslaughter and endangerment.
You would expect someone facing a manslaughter charge to be arrested and to have to bond out of jail. But the judge decided not to set bond for her. I think that's unheard of when someone has been accused of driving drunk and killing someone. She didn't even so much as lose her driver's license.
Rose Marie Marr buried her 21-year-old daughter. and Gloria Schulz was released. And that was only the beginning of an infuriating fight to find justice for Angela.
Everybody's like, where's Gloria?
This woman needs to be brought to justice. If you know where Gloria Schulz is, please make that call. Here's the next missing child case we'd like your help in bringing to a safe and peaceful conclusion. Lashea Stein was last seen in Aurora, Colorado in July 2016, walking down East Montview Boulevard in the middle of the night. She was 16 years old when she disappeared. 5 feet 6 inches tall and 150 pounds. She has a quarter-size scar on her chest. If you know anything at all about Lashea's whereabouts, please call us.
In July 1994, Gloria Schulz, legally drunk, struck and killed Angela Marr on a busy road in Scottsdale, Arizona. No handcuffs, no arrest. The prosecutor didn't even have an issue with Schulz leaving the state. She was allowed to travel to California twice to visit her family, first for Christmas, and then for her sister's graduation the following spring. Months passed. The case remained unresolved.
They wanted me to plea bargain the case, and I said, absolutely not. We go to court 1 month, and it was Kazan who would want the postponement. The next month, it was the county attorney. We just went back and forth. 1 month, it was one and one. Why? I don't know.
Now, the trial was delayed many times. For some people, they might find that unusual, but that's a tactic of a high-paid defense attorney.
Larry Kazan was doing what most defense attorneys would do, and that's try to get to a time when there isn't a lot of publicity going on about the case. There were 6 continuances that were asked for.
It feels awful. I think every day my daughter's buried and she's out there breathing fresh air. It's horrible.
Rose Marr waited and waited to see Schulz held accountable for Angela's death. In September of 1995, over a year after her daughter's death, it looked like Rose would finally get her day in court. But at the pretrial hearing on September 15th, there was yet another obstacle for trying Schulz. She wasn't there.
Everybody's like, where's Gloria?
I was livid. Just livid.
It turns out that in the last 15 days before that pretrial hearing, she skipped 5 drug tests and nobody caught it. She did not check in with her probation officer and nobody caught it. She sold 2 cars and nobody asked, what's she doing here? She maxed out her credit card and nobody noticed. And all of a sudden when she doesn't show up on the day of her hearing, everybody's like, well, gee, where's Gloria?
I called the prosecutor who was handling the case and said, get the Scottsdale police and go over to the house, see what you can find. She's fled, for God's sakes.
The criminal justice system didn't just let Gloria Schulz slip through their fingers. They practically opened the door and invited her to leave.
For years, Angela's family lobbied the prosecutors and Arizona's governor to try Gloria Schulz in absentia. Finally, in 2001, 7 years after Angela was killed, the case went to trial, without Gloria.
It was very bizarre because the prosecutors could not tell the jury why there was this big empty chair next to them, because Gloria wasn't there. But it was pretty much a slam dunk. The evidence was what it was. Great, they tried her in absentia. She's guilty of manslaughter and hasn't served so much as 1 moment in time.
On May 3rd, 2001, Gloria Schulz was found guilty of vehicular manslaughter, but the victory was an empty one. she has never taken responsibility for her crime. After Angela's death, Arizona laws governing drunk driving have become much more strict. A meaningful change, but Rose Marr still grieves for her daughter.
DUI cases have come a long way in the way they're prosecuted.
And yes, there's been a lot of laws that have changed since this happened, but it doesn't give you any comfort, even though you know there's a lot of good things have come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I've always said that she not only killed my daughter, but she destroyed my family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough.
Mm-hmm. I know it is.
But I think every parent goes through that if they lose a child.
Mm-hmm. It's been tough for my family.
And the pain never goes away. And then to have this tragedy happen and then it not being solved is what really, really makes you angry.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I'm alive, I'm going to make sure they find this woman.
We're going to help.
You know, a case like this one sometimes leads people to ask me if I think vehicular homicide is really a crime. Well, yes, it is. In fact, the jury answered that question with a resounding yes. So please, help bring this criminal back to face justice. Today, Gloria Schultz would be in her 50s. She never had a serious career, though she did do some secretarial work. She had family in Orange County, California. So if you have any knowledge about Gloria Schultz's whereabouts, make that call. I guarantee you that you can remain anonymous. Now, let's recap tonight's other cases. Lamont Stevenson, who could be in a southern state like Virginia or North Carolina. Luis Martinez, who disappeared from El Paso, Texas in June 2015. And Lashea Stein, who was last seen in Aurora, Colorado in July 2016. Now, please remember, you can make a difference. I'm John Walsh. We'll see you next time on In Pursuit.